Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I want to talk a bit about Daniel Dubois because I want to ask the question, what has he done to earn a shot at the undisputed heavyweight championship? Of course, OLEKSANDR USYK holds all the belts apart from the WBC, which Fury is keeping hostage. But Dubois at 25, I mean, has he been brought along to take on someone like Usyk? You can argue, well, Usyk is just so much better than anyone else, bar possibly Fury, that you can't really prepare for that. Well, I don't actually agree. I think you can bring someone along, as I always say, incrementally, and get them into world level, and then they have 3, 4, 5, 10 rounders against good sort of fringe contenders, and then they can make a run for the title. You can argue that Dubois is never going to be good enough to fight Usyk, and that's an argument that I would probably agree with, thinking about it offhand. But I think it's a shame that Dubois' career has gone this way, because if you look at the start of it, he was actually being brought along very well. He fought for some minor titles. I think in only his fourth fight, he won the WBC Youth Heavyweight title against the guy who was 15-1, Maurizio Berrigan, and he knocked him out in 2 rounds. Okay, for a fourth fight, that's pretty good. Then he fought AJ Carter, knocked him spark out in the first round to win the Southern Area title. Then he was up to, I think he defended the Southern Area title as well against DL Jones. Dorian Darch went out in a couple of rounds, and Tom Little in 5. Kevin Johnson, of course, took him the distance. See, now that's the sort of fight you want. Kevin Johnson, who's going to take you rounds. Kajanu went out in 2. Then the Tom Little fight, by the way, was for the British title, I think. So, he picked up the British. Then he went on to I don't think it was the EBU, but he won a European belt of one of those WBC, WBO European things. It's not really the real, European title, but he also fought. Actually, I made a mistake. Tom Little was the English title, wasn't it? And then Nathan Gorman was the British. Yeah. But anyway, my point is that he was being brought along, area, English, British, some sort of European, maybe the odd journeyman who can take you rounds like a Kevin Johnson. And then, of course, he goes on and he wins. I think he did at some point. He didn't win it, but he fought. By the time he got to Joe Joyce, that was the EBU title was on the line. I think Joyce held that, if I remember. This is very confusing, but I think Joyce held the EBU, and that's it. Joyce held the EBU, and then Dubois held the Commonwealth and the British, because he won the Commonwealth against Ebenezer Tete. That was a two-round blowout, I think. So when he bumped into Joyce, when he moved up to face Joe Joyce, who, a much older man, extremely physically strong, and Daniel did his best, but this was for the Commonwealth, British and the EBU, and then I think there were a couple of those secondary alphabet belts on the line, but it was too much. Joyce got the better of him, okay, and stopped him in 10 rounds. Now, that was a bad setback, but at the same time, people talk about Dubois quitting, and he did quit. But I'm not quite as hard on people who quit in boxing as some others, because he went 10 rounds, and some of that was with a busted eye socket. And sometimes, discretion is the better part of valour. If he'd carried on, maybe a piece of bone could have gone into the eye. And we saw, we've seen a few fighters have to retire through eye injuries. Anthony Ogogo is a very, very good example. Spent over $100,000 trying to get his eye fixed, couldn't do it, and had to retire. It's a very, very serious injury. So I was kind of like, all right, he quit in 10 rounds, okay. But, if he can get his eye fixed, he can learn from that 10 rounds, and at least we know he's got some mettle to him. He's not... He fought on, did his best with a busted eye socket, and he was, at the time, I think he was only about 22 years old, and Joyce was about 34 or something. So it was man against boy stuff. But since then, he's had 4 wins, and Bogdan Dino in 2 rounds. Some guy he did in a round, whose name I can't remember, an American fella. Then he fought Trevor Bryan for the WBA world title. You know, he got rid of him in, was it 4 rounds? And then he fought Kevin Lerena, and Kevin Lerena is just a cruiserweight, doesn't it particularly hard at cruiserweight, but he had Dubois all at sea in the first round, and Dubois suffered an injury. It was a top of the head temple shot, totally scrambled him. Dubois goes down. Did he injure his knee, I think? But he managed to come back and get Lerena out of there in the second round. So that shows a bit of fortitude, although I have to say, overall the Lerena fight was very disturbing. That was more alarming than the Joe Joyce defeat. Because in that first round, Dubois, I mean, to get clipped by a light puncher like that, to go down and then take a knee twice, okay, if he's injured, he's injured. And I think between rounds he was mentioning to, was it Shane McGuigan was training him, and he actually implied that he wanted to quit there and then because he was injured. And McGuigan had to sort of put his foot in his arse and say, get out there and do it. And he threw everything at Lerena in a sort of last gasp effort and got him out of there in 3 rounds, wasn't it? It was 3, yeah, was it 3? It was 3 rounds against Lerena, 3 rounds. And, you know, Lerena must be kicking himself for taking his foot off the gas, but yeah, that was in the 3rd round, not the 2nd round. So then suddenly he's in there with OLEKSANDR USYK. Now, is Daniel Dubois, is any of that we've just talked about, any preparation for Usyk? No. And I accept that Usyk is really good, and, you know, any kind of preparation might not be enough. But at 25 years old, going over to Poland to fight Usyk, Warren and Queensberry didn't win the purse bids. Does he have any realistic chance of winning? Has he spent enough time under the lights? Has he spent enough? I mean, he's faced adversity certainly, and he's apart from the Joyce fight. I mean, with Lerena he came through it. With Joyce he didn't. But has he done enough sort of Kevin Johnson style 10 rounders to at least think, well, I can do 12 rounds easy, and I know what I'm going to do. There's also the fact that he switched trainers. He's now with Don Charles, and McGuigan. I actually think McGuigan is a very, very good trainer. Don Charles, I think, is a sort of, he's a meat and potatoes sort of trainer. I'm not knocking the guy, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't put him on a par with someone like McGuigan. I think he'll get a guy fit, but is he going to learn anything off Don Charles that he couldn't have learned off McGuigan or anyone else? No, I don't think so. I have doubts about this matchup with Don Charles. So the question, getting back to the original question, what has he done to earn this title shot? My theory is that Warren is protecting Fury, so he always wanted Fury to avoid Usyk, which he most certainly did, because Warren knew he had Dubois as a mandatory contender, and he knew that Dubois, who he promotes, would have to, or Usyk would have to face Dubois. So that protects Fury, and if Dubois wins, great, fantastic. And he is a banger, so maybe, you know, I don't think he's got much of a chance, but you never know. But it protects Fury, because if Dubois wins, great. If he doesn't, well, all right, I've got bigger fish to fry. He treats Dubois and Joyce as secondary, far secondary to Fury. In a sense, they are, if it's chess, they are the pieces that surround the king, who is Fury, that he's the big cash cow. And prevent the likes of Usyk from getting at Fury. Fury, of course, is going to fight Francis Ngannou, make a huge amount of money from a non-fight, and Warren, of course, gets a cut of that. So I don't think Dubois has done anything really to earn this shot, but yeah. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I don't think he's done anything to deserve the shot. Leave your comments below, as always. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for your time. I'll answer your comments, and like the video as well. Yep, we'll speak again soon. Bye for now.